The man who played the cheerful husband on one of the most beloved shows in television history spent his final years cleaning strangers' toilets just to survive, and that is not even close to the saddest story in this cast. One actress filmed every single episode while secretly dying of cancer and never told a soul. The woman at the center of it all was gone in 8 weeks at 62, and almost no one knew she was even ill. I went looking for a then and now story. What I found was something much bigger than that. Number 1. Alice Pierce as Gladys Kravitz. If you watched Bewitched, you know exactly what I mean when I say Gladys Kravitz was the soul of that neighborhood. That squinting face pressed against the window. The desperate way she grabbed Abner by the sleeve. Alice Pierce played her from the very first episode in 1964. And she was genuinely funny in a way that felt completely effortless. What I found out was that none of it was effortless, not even close. Before filming began, Alice Pierce had already been diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. She told almost no one. The producers did not know. The network did not know. Only Elizabeth Montgomery and Dick York knew, and they quietly covered for her on set without ever making her feel pitied. She showed up every single week, dying, and she made people laugh anyway. Alice Pierce was 48 years old when she died on March 3, 1966. The role she had kept was filled. The secret she had kept was not. If you remember watching Gladys Kravitz as a kid, drop her name in the comments. Most people had no idea what was really happening behind that performance. Number 2. David White as Larry Tate. Here is the contrast that stopped me cold during my research. Alice Pierce protected everyone around her from her pain. David White had no such choice. You probably remember Larry Tate as the blowhard boss, the man who changed his opinion the moment the client walked in. David White played him for all 8 seasons, 170 episodes, second only to Elizabeth Montgomery in total appearances on the show. What I always assumed was that his story ended quietly, the way most supporting actors do. A gradual fade, a comfortable retirement. I was completely wrong. On December 21, 1988, his son Jonathan, a 33-year-old accountant, was killed aboard Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. David White had raised Jonathan alone. His wife had died when the boy was still small. 2 years later, almost to the day, David White died of a heart attack. He was 74. Those who knew him said his heart had already been broken long before it stopped. Number 3. Marion Lorne as Aunt Clara. David White lost the person he loved most and never recovered. Marion Lorne never got to know that the people she worked with felt exactly the same way about her. If you remember Aunt Clara, you remember the doorknobs, the apologetic smile after a spell went sideways, the gentle chaos she brought into every room. Marion Lorne played her from 1964 until she simply could not anymore. She died of a heart attack on May 9, 1968, in her Manhattan apartment. She was 84 years old. Here is the part that genuinely got to me. 10 days later, at the Emmy ceremony, her name was called. Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, she had won. Elizabeth Montgomery walked to the stage to accept it and said quietly, "We owe her a big thanks for all the happiness she brought us." Marion Lorne never knew. The producers retired Aunt Clara permanently. No recast, no explanation, just a chair that stayed empty. Number 4. Dick Sargent as Darren Stevens. Most people remember that Aunt Clara simply vanished from the show. What fewer people know is that the man who stepped into the lead role that same season had been quietly disappearing from himself for decades. Dick Sargent played Darren Stevens from 1969 through the final season in 1972. And I always assumed replacing Dick York must have been the hardest thing he faced on that show. It turns out that was nothing compared to what he was carrying off camera. For most of his adult life, Dick Sargent kept his sexuality completely hidden. This was Hollywood in the 1960s. The cost of honesty was your career. In 1991, on National Coming Out Day, he came forward publicly. He was already battling prostate cancer. He knew people might assume he had AIDS. He came out anyway, calling himself a retroactive role model because young people were dying by suicide, and he decided that mattered more than his own comfort. He died on July 8, 1994. He was 64. He said coming out was the best thing he ever did. I want to know if you remember when this news came out. Leave a comment below. A lot of people have never heard this part of his story. Number 5. Agnes Moorehead as Endora. Dick Sargent made a choice in his final years that took real courage. Agnes Moorehead spent her final years asking a question nobody in power wanted to answer. You probably remember Endora the way she always arrived. Imperious, magnificent, absolutely certain she was the most interesting person in any room. Agnes Moorehead played her for all 8 seasons, and she was nominated 4 times for the Academy Award across her career. She never won. I always assumed her death in 1974 was simply the end of a long life well lived. What I found out was far darker than that. In 1954, she had filmed a movie called The Conqueror in the Utah desert, 137 miles downwind from an active U.S. government nuclear test site. By 1980, a People magazine investigation found that 91 of the 220 people on that production had developed cancer. 46 had died. John Wayne, Susan Hayward, the director Dick Powell, Agnes Moorehead. She was a lifelong non-smoker. She believed until the end that the desert had killed her. The evidence is very difficult to argue with. Number 6. Erin Murphy as Tabitha Stevens. Agnes Moorehead never got her answers. The person I want to tell you about next is still here, still talking, and carrying more of this story than anyone else alive. Erin Murphy played Tabitha Stevens from 1966 through the final episode in 1972. She was 2 years old when she started. 2. She initially shared the role with her fraternal twin sister Diane, until the 2 girls grew less alike and Erin quietly took over alone. What I noticed during my research was how naturally she describes Elizabeth Montgomery as a mother figure. She spent her entire first 8 years of life on that set. She told an interviewer in 2022 that in some ways she is more like Liz than like her own mum. In December 2025, she spoke publicly about Montgomery's death for the first time in years. She said she did not know how sick Elizabeth really was. She found out through Montgomery's son. She also said something that stayed with me. I am going to be 62 next year. The thought of that is just crazy. She is 61 now, the last one standing. Number 7. Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha Stevens. Erin Murphy said she did not know how sick Elizabeth was until near the end. And honestly, that detail tells you everything about the woman at the center of this whole story. Elizabeth Montgomery played Samantha Stevens for all 254 episodes, every single one. No other cast member matched that. She was the show, completely, for 8 years starting in 1964. I always assumed she loved every minute of it. The truth is more complicated. She was married to the show's producer and director, William Asher, throughout most of the run. That marriage ended in 1973. Friends later said she had spent much of her life searching for approval that never quite arrived, partly shaped by a cold and demanding relationship with her famous father, actor Robert Montgomery. After Bewitched, she deliberately chose dark and difficult roles. A rape survivor, Lizzie Borden, a woman attacked for her political beliefs. She was nominated for an Emmy for Lizzie Borden and did not win that either. In March 1995, she was diagnosed with colon cancer. She died 8 weeks later. She was 62 years old. Almost no one knew she was ill. Number 8. George Tobias as Abner Kravitz. Elizabeth Montgomery spent 8 years making everything look effortless. George Tobias spent 50 years doing the same thing, and almost nobody noticed. You probably remember him as the man perpetually exhausted by his wife's panic about the neighbors. Patient, rumpled, quietly funny. He played Abner Kravitz from 1964 through 1971. What I did not know was the career behind that role. Gary Cooper in Sergeant York, James Cagney in Yankee Doodle Dandy, a genuine Golden Age film actor who somehow became best known for a sitcom neighbor. He never married. He retired in 1977, already ill with bladder cancer. He died on February 27, 1980, aged 78, largely forgotten by the industry he had served for 5 decades. The man who played the neighbor had no one watching from next door. But the last name on this list did, and her story is the one that might surprise you most. Number 9. Dick York as Darren Stevens. George Tobias was forgotten quietly over decades. Dick York was erased almost overnight, and the reasons why were hidden from the public for years. Dick York played the original Darren Stevens from 1964 through 1969. If you watch the show, you know exactly what I mean when I say he was irreplaceable. The exasperation, the timing, the way he made you believe a man could love someone completely and still find her absolutely maddening. I always assumed he left because of a dispute, a falling out. That is what rumors suggested at the time. What I found out was far sadder. In 1959, a single moment on a film set tore the muscles along the right side of his back. He spent 5 seasons of Bewitched in agony. Crew members stood on the far side of doors in case he was too weak to open them. He died in 1992, aged at 63, broke oxygen tank beside him. Calling strangers to ask for food donations for the homeless, he said at the end, "I am happy, complete." These people gave us something most television never manages, not just entertainment, a place that felt like home, a neighborhood we actually wanted to live in. And they built that feeling while carrying things we never knew about and never asked about. If you think the Bewitched cast had it hard, wait until you see what happened to the stars of I Dream of Jeannie. Subscribe so that one finds you when it drops.